Let's get it. What's going on? What's really good? How you doing? How you feeling? It's another Thursday night. This is a Chop Up Show. Glad to have you with us. It's your girl Toyuhgee, feeling good, feeling great. I'm on the way to my break, so you can't tell me nothing right now. Hopefully, where you at and what you doing got you feeling good, got you in spring mode. I know out here in Southern California, it's been doing a whole lot of raining, and I know one person who can agree with that is my boy, the political plug. Who's here with me tonight. About to have some great conversations, get into some things. Shout out to everybody in the comments. Girl Nettles pulled up early. Danielle C was good. Glad that you are meeting us in 2023 officially. It's never a bad time. It's never too late to tune in to the Chop Up Show. Tori J was good with you. Hood Therapy, J Universe. I'm glad y'all with us tonight. The plug is representing the consciously professional shit talker. So make sure y'all go grab those hoodies real quick. Don't miss out on those. But plug. What's good? What's great? How you feeling? What we talking about tonight?
Man, so I made my return to TikTok. I've been making enemies. I've been making enemies on TikTok in my spare time. But you know what I'm saying? Y'all know what it is. I'm gonna bring some of them beefs over there because I got some niggas that's challenging me on some debates about racism on TikTok. So it's like, hey, I got a whole platform to give niggas that smoke. So yeah, I'm with it.
What we talking about tonight? As you take
shit, I mean, we got the Trump conversation, but then we have to have a conversation about the Black agenda. You know what I mean?
We do.
Where should we start?
Let's start with Trump. Let's go ahead and get some of that business out the way because I know a lot of people been on the edge of their seats trying to figure out this craziness that's been stirred up both by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, but also by Trump himself on some social media platforms. So what's going on with Donald Trump right now?
All right, so to fill y'all in, Donald Trump punked the world when he he didn't necessarily tweet, but he did what's called a truth on Truth Social, where he said that like going into the weekend last week, Donald Trump made the claim that he will be arrested. He'll be indicted by the Manhattan District Attorney, so he will be getting arrested on Tuesday. We all waited on bated breath to see what would come from that. Prepared to be able to react. He called for protests, right, in light of him being arrested. And so the world was really sitting back waiting Tuesday and was disappointed. We all was disappointed because Tuesday came and Tuesday went, nothing happened. Wednesday came, Wednesday went, nothing happened. Go ahead.
Well, no, from what I understand about it, though, is like it was a big game kind of being played by Trump, and it was his move to both incite his followers and, you know, his people that are in the world of Trumpism, but also, you know, he tries to be the master of spin. And so I think his goal ultimately was to make us believe that Tuesday was going to be some big day, which from what I understand, Manhattan District Attorney's Office was like, we still got a lot of things still unfolding, a lot of conversations still being happening. Grand juries are still being organized and that whole process is being solidified. So he just did that for y'all. He never said that.
So they got the grand jury. The issue was just more so there's a lot of conversation surrounding like how strong the case is, and we're gonna talk about that. But me typically, I'm not one to harp on like political celebrities, right? Like once Obama was just a celebrity that was an ex-president, it's like, all right, we can talk about his legacy. But harping on Obama don't make no sense because we got a current president that we need to be vigilant of, right? And that was Donald Trump at the time.
I think, especially at a certain extent, after some time to transition and see how new things are happening, we need to be locked into what's happening now.
Right. I mean, again, there are moments where there's a relevancy associated with the legacy of Barack Obama and being the drone strike president, right? Those conversations are there. But the constant Obama that was coming out of the Trump administration was aggravating. And it was like, nigga, you president. You know what I'm saying? Like all this shit you blaming Obama for, you've been here 2-3 years, right? So what ended up happening is after Trump made these claims, right? I ain't really trying to have this conversation, but this is what's out there right now. So we got to talk about Trump. You feel me? Right now, because the man is a good chance he's going to jail. Nettles asked the question: this Trump stuff, will it affect the common person like you? There is a common person conversation associated with this Trump stuff, and that's the second part of this dialogue. But the reason why I want to talk about what's going on with Trump legally is because I want to address the different ways that these legal conversations and these questions of law and order, right? People play around with them. It's mental gymnastics about, because like we grew up on, you do the crime, you do the time, right? Like there's no ambiguity about, like if you commit a crime, if they should do it, if they shouldn't, what about your life? What about these other circumstances? Nah, that never happened with regular people.
Yeah.
Right. But with Donald Trump, we are really seeing like people questioning, well, should they, they got evidence for it, but it's not common, that type of shit. And so I want to start out by first pointing out that this man should already be in jail. The amount of legal trouble he is currently under, he should already be locked up. Let's start with the first case, and this is the Manhattan District Attorney case, where he's in trouble for hush money payments. Okay, Donald Trump, after he became president, gave money to Michael Cohen to pay ex porn star Stormy Daniels for her to not run her mouth. Right? They disguised it as like legal work, which is illegal in the state of California. I would say state of California, in the state of New York, right? Which is, it would be a misdemeanor, but because the statute of limitations are approaching, they've raised it to the level of a felony to be able to make sure that they can carry out the actual, holding them accountable for like misdocumenting it purposely, right? Changing documents and information to cover up hush money payments, right? The issue with this particular case with Donald Trump is that they're saying that, well, it's one of those iffy things, right? It's people do it and it's illegal, but people don't prosecute for it, right? It's not something that they follow through with. It doesn't seem that strong. The evidence clearly points to Donald Trump giving money to then lawyer Michael Cohen, who then clearly said that it was for one thing and admitted that what he used the money for was for something else.
Can I clarify something real quick? Is Michael Cohen currently in prison?
Michael Cohen is out of prison. He was locked up. He did go to jail. Okay. He did go to jail.
So he was dealing with a dishonest person and already did his time for his inappropriate behavior, impertuities. I think I was the word I'm looking for. But
Michael Cohen did time for shit that he did for Donald Trump.
So I'm just saying, like, in terms of arrows pointing at the guilt, you're doing business with dirty people who have already been convinced by the law. Ain't that how niggas get wrapped up? Wasn't you with such and such and so and so?
But that's why he got him. That's why he got.
You said that's why he got what? I can't hear you. Yeah. Hey, chat, tell us real quick if y'all can hear the plug or if that's just me. I can't hear him right now. But what I will say, even as he goes out and comes back, is, a lot of this funny business with Stormy Daniels is wrapped up with a lot of the misogynist politics. And I think, okay, so Siobhan, I wasn't tripping. And he's back. But I think we also, one of the questions I've been wondering about and thinking about in relationships.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. But here's what I wanted to pose real quick. Because we look at this Stormy Daniels situation, but this is not our first time hearing her name. We heard him with the grab him by the P word. We had a number of different opportunities to get him. And I think people are catching Trump fatigue. So a lot of people aren't sure whether to look at all of this hoopla that he's been causing. Thank y'all for popping in and letting us know what's going on. I think a lot of people, have looked at this. This is just another chapter of they ain't about to get that nigga. You know what I'm saying? Versus a real chance to really take him and put him. So I think that's why people are in some ways are disinterested. That's why I think Girl Nettles was like, how does this really affect me on a personal day-to-day level? It's just because we've been getting so excited about the chance to finally get them. Are these really real opportunities? But you were in the middle of listing all of the different ways that the legal system is working against him. So I don't want to interrupt that at all because I'm loving understanding how Trump is going to get cut off at the knees. So What else about the Manhattan District Attorney's office, or is there a second example you want to start putting on the table for how he might be wrapped up? Can't hear you again. Don't know why. Can't hear you at this moment. So I'll go ahead and start jumping in on the second example. He'll come in and clean up whatever I miss, if anything, explain. But the second way that Donald Trump is on the chopping block in terms of the legal system is, of course, in Georgia. Right now, y'all remember back in the elections when he was scrambling for ballots and scrambling for votes, he was attempting to persuade the ballot counters in the state, and if I'm not mistaken, the governor of the state of Georgia, specifically in Fulton County, to find the votes for him, right? That was language he used. It was, I think, either recorded in a phone call or extracted from text messages or emails, but they gonna get him for tampering in these elections. And I think that is very interesting because you would hope that if convicted of election tampering, of attempting to, betray the democratic system and the democratic process, that all those Trumpites, all those people under the cloak of Trumpism would give up the stop the steal allegations or the idea that the elections are stolen. But I doubt that. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's kind of hard to, I just don't know how he gets out of that one. Right. I think the Stormy Daniels business, that's what I was kind of getting at a minute ago. We already been going back and forth about that. I mean, it's been years. Stormy Daniels, I think, done wrote a book. She did press tours, a lot of conversations about that. We know the Manhattan District Attorney Office is not playing no more. Right. We know that on top of Alvin Bragg, we got Letitia James, who we talked about a lot on the show. We even had a couple different segments about her in the past. But it seems as though they're not stepping light. But I don't know. Like, I feel like he might be able to wiggle and shimmy shake, because from what I hear, he's going to stand to lose millions and won't be able to buy a hot dog in New York if he's ended up guilty. But we've heard Stormy Daniels in this whole situation be kind of judged and, questioned before. So who knows? But with this Georgia stuff, I'm just kind of, I'm tempted to believe that how do you get out of that? Like, it's physical proof that explains and describes him being like, go find me some ballots where they at, which only strengthens the idea that he wanted to steal the election, not that it was stolen from him, right? Third example that I think we get from Trump potentially being under the long arm of the law is what's going on in Mar-a-Lago, right? We know that investigation is still underway, and that apparently he was hiding documents, classified documents that he wasn't supposed to have, that he wasn't supposed to be obtaining, and that they've gone down there and searched and found those particular documents. And so untangling that, figuring out what that means for the Trump era, especially as you attempt to run for president. I mean, any of these convictions nullify your chance to be a future president, right? And disgrace. I think it's not only going to disgrace his legacy, but his entire party, right? I think Trump being convicted, and y'all let me know if y'all feel like this is the case. Do y'all feel like Trump is so much of a polarizing figure that conservatives and Republicans will eventually or even immediately be able to distance themselves from him? Or do y'all feel like Trump is so radioactive and so toxic, and they put so much stock in standing behind him, that it's going to really, if Trump being convicted is really going to deteriorate how people look at the whole Republican Party? I already asked my question. And Plug, I want you to chime in on this real quick. Mm-hmm. Right? If Trump is convicted, do you feel like either immediately or down the road, the Republican Party is going to be able to get the Trump stink off of them and redeem themselves? Because it's one thing to just be a polarizing figure. It's another thing to have elected and stood behind a criminal.
Nah.
Right? Or do you think that they're going to be able to just be like, nah, no, or they're going to have to eat that? Do you feel like the party will suffer because of their?
No, they gotta eat that. Like, Donald Trump has set the Republican Party back like decades. Like decades. Like, what people don't recognize is that before Trump, when Republicans lost to Obama the second time with Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, after that, like, ass whooping that they got, they had a come to Jesus meeting. One of the things, like, they literally had they had an audit of the party. They had an audit of what the party stood for. They had an audit what the party represented, right? And what they recognize is that on certain social issues, not progressive issues, but just social issues in general, they recognize that they was behind the times.
Yeah.
That the reason why Obama was able to build such a reliable base around what he stood for, around that message of hope, is because it was this thing called the Obama Coalition. It was a bunch of different not ethnic groups, but just a bunch of different voting groups that typically didn't vote in unison. These people didn't typically vote with these people, but when it came to Obama, they was able to do that because of his talking points, what he represented. My son broke out of his crib to say hello.
My boy, Hugh. Good evening. But no, I think, you say you feel like it'll be a turning point. You feel like this will be a pivotal kind of wake up point. I think Girl Nettle says 50-50, right? They say it could go either way. They might double down. You don't remember how for real they were January 6th. They don't care, right? This is a ruthless bunch. And that was going to be the third example. While you were gone, we finished talking about, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. We slid into talking a little bit about what's going on in Georgia. And then we kind of talked a bit. Now we're talking about what's happening in terms of these documents at Mar-a-Lago. And I feel like stealing government documents should be the pinnacle of you can't be trusting, of treasonous behavior, of behavior that should make us skeptical on you and your party. So you and the niggas behind you should be, you know what I'm saying? Like, we should scrutinize that. And Baby Nettles is saying, like, they don't care. They down the ride. I think even Apocalypse said, I think the followers will go the persecution route and get riled up even more. Right? I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I think I didn't hear about no protests on Tuesday. So
it was light. Because what we got to recognize is they go with the winners. Who can win? If Donald Trump wouldn't have got the nomination in 2016 and won, he wouldn't be relevant to them no more. Yeah, because he would be considered somebody not viable. Like, we tried it and work. You know what I'm saying? And work like that. The only reason why like Republicans got behind him the way that they did was because he had that type of aura of I'm a winner. I can get people around me. I can go against the grain.
He's like, he can shoot somebody in the street and not go to jail. Doesn't he say
that? All of that. But that stemmed from the people that support Donald Trump were the people that Republicans were about to abandon. The Tea Party.
Ironically enough, yeah.
Right. The people who support that. So this entire group that Donald Trump, that rallied around Donald Trump were about to become the pariahs. They was about to be the people that was rejected. Because Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden, because it was as crazy as it was, because he lost Georgia, right? For example. And listen, I listened to the entire 60-something minutes of Donald Trump, like really like asking them for votes. You feel me? You don't find for like tens of thousands of votes.
Yeah.
You feel me? That's not something you don't come across tens of thousands of votes. It don't work like that.
I can find you about 200, 250.
Right. And so the election claims had destroyed Trump's viability, right? And when we see this with everything that's coming out with the Fox News Dominion lawsuit, like Fox News was like, yo, this shit is wild that we even putting this shit on the air. Yeah. So once Donald Trump lost, it was even people within Fox News that were saying straight up, like, thank God we ain't got to talk about him no more. Like, this is done.
So I want
and Ron DeSantis, and the last point I make on this is Ron DeSantis is next up. Yeah. Ron DeSantis is the one that's who everybody's rallying around right now. And his battle is the woke war. It's not embracing racism in and of itself, but it's fighting the idea of wokeness, right?
Yeah. To abandon a reliance on that is a good thing. I wanted to get to kind of some of these other comments on it because Donnell says he always breaks the barrier for what he could get away with. The only bright side is that they tend to be older. The momentum is behind millennials and later generations. And I think that cuts both ways. I think later generations are the Ron DeSantis's, right? Like, we got to remember Trump is old as shit too. And so they are attempting to appeal to probably a baby boomer generation, understanding that those people are in a very sensitive place where they're not quite as liberal as your Gen Xers, right? Those are their kids. But at the same time, they're not as old as some of the people in power now. They in their 50s, 60s, early 70s, ready to get down and really kind of ride for some shit, some beliefs, some ideologies, some values that we've transitioned out of. Gronetto says, listen, Trump should win again. People hate Biden so much. If Trump beats the charges, he may win the election. And I don't disagree with that We definitely did have a appearance by
But
our
see,
producer. So shout out to
I
Baby
gotta
Plug.
push back against that though.
Why?
Like that's what I'm like, because I feel like that type of defeatism, like that approach, is it's what made him possible in the first place. But then that perspective also was proven to be wrong, and when he lost in 2020. You feel me? Like it's because when it comes to like liberals and leftists, or like really liberals, Joe Biden ain't disappointing them. Like Joe Biden is not doing things that's making people feel like, man, the Democratic Party back still. What they ain't doing. Nah. Like Joe Biden is doing, like he got Ketanji Brown Jackson. He has Kamala Harris with all the criticism associated with it. He's passed certain bills associated with they got to do with like certain forms of federal police reform and those type of things. So it's just that Trump and them are louder, and they you know what I'm saying, that shit make more noise. So it's easy for us to fall into, oh, he just gonna get reelected again. But nah, like liberals are happy with Joe Biden. They not just saying that he's just getting by. Like nah, like he is to them. Like for when they wanted that normal back with a little dash of DEI. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they're getting. Like he's doing that in a lot of ways. He's being the moderate that they wanted him to be. Right, which is frustrating for us leftists because it's like, man, that we don't
go harder. We ain't moved by that. We ain't impressed by that shit. But everybody else is like, the trains are running as they should. Well, like you said, a little bit of splash of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. We're gonna make sure to do this, to forward these faces, to make sure we say these particular groups' names, all of these interesting approaches. Siobhan, and I'm gonna turn it back over to you to talk about the January 6th riots before we move on through the rest of it. Siobhan says, I think many will still not denounce him, but will push that it was in the past nonsense and try to separate themselves from his antics in that era, in that pocket of time. I think the stink is gonna resonate with them a little bit longer. They're not gonna, I don't think Democrats gonna let them off like that. But at the same time, we already know the Democrats don't really know how to stick it to a party the same way the Republicans have learned how to stick it to the Democrats in ways that it matters. So I don't really know outside of using it as, talking points, if it really matters. Last thing I want to point out is Girl Nettles, who says, I'm not being defeatist. I'm just saying we got work to do and don't sleep on. And I think they're intentionally typing rump is in the ass. So I put the T on there out of respect. But
even if not intentional,
we love it.
That was like a happy coincidence.
And so, I mean, I think the we's, the Democrats, the whomevers, however you kind of situate yourself, I think if you want to push back against, honestly, Big Trump or Baby Trump, aka Ron DeSantis, some better strategizing got to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think and that's what I'm saying. So that, like the last thing, because it's if we add them up, right? You have the hush money case, the Mar-a-Lago documents case. The what was the third one? Georgia. Georgia looking for votes, RICO case.
What's the last one?
And what was the last one?
January 6th.
The Jack Smith investigation with January 6th, right? That's four investigations. On top of him being sued by E. Jean Carroll for rape. That's five. And because she just recently won a motion where it was certain evidence Trump wanted dismissed that they was able to admit. So 5 legal issues that Trump is dealing with at the same time, right? What becomes frustrating is that amongst these different conversations are questions of whether or not Trump should be convicted, of whether or not they should actually go forward with certain things. Will it make him stronger? Will it make him more powerful? Right? You have people saying, well, it's unprecedented for this to happen. Right? They're even going as far as sending letters from Congress to call into question, like really straight up, like whether or not a district attorney should be investigating a citizen of his jurisdiction. Right? So it's all of this ambiguity around what we should do with Trump and all this other shit.
Yeah.
But it's like, how many different ways can they tell us that we have 2 completely different justice systems? Like everybody else is looking at it like, yeah, they need to get him. This is a good thing. And it's like, no, that how this conversation is taking place is kind of productive because it's displaying the ways in which the laws can be interpreted differently for people in power. Yeah. But when it comes to people like us, when you do the crime, you do the time.
You know what's unique about that for me too is how he is so captivating to certain people. Because white people love to be like, we poor too. We don't have access to education too. We struggling too. Our communities are forgotten about too. They shit on us too. And then they still, the same poor white people still go rally around a nigga who is very clearly being treated different than you, that has different priorities than you, that would shit on you if he got the opportunity to, outside of his ability to tantalize you enough to vote for him. So I think that's always been the disconnect, is that like you want to make yourself similar to niggas so bad. Your plight ain't no more special than mine. I go through this, I go through that. But for whatever reason, race, the ability to understand the racialized context of power and how shit plays out, for some reason, has you making these points of departure away from us, even though we so much alike and our struggles are so much the same and black people ain't special. Excuse me. But when you want it to be relevant, you separate yourself and follow the white man. And the white man who very clearly just has a different orientation toward life than you do. So it's really weird. Grow Nettles, and I don't want to cut to that too soon, but I do want to shout out these AI pictures of Trump getting arrested. That fooled a lot of people. They even had me. I wish we had them so we could pull them up. I should have sent them to post them on the screen.
Yeah, so I don't get caught up. I don't get caught with shit. I didn't even know that it was some fake pictures out there. I was looking for the headlines. All I'm doing is checking the headlines.
Let me see. I mean, do it the janky way. Why you talking, and pull them up real quick.
But I think ultimately, like, this is where we need to start recognizing where our political focus should be. Like, if I'm being 100% honest, I would much rather have politicians that is just saying, hey, other powerful people, we're going to work to make sure that when they break the law, they actually deal with the consequences of breaking the law. Like, they keep talking about how unprecedented.
So these are AI generated photos.
They wouldn't even have did that though. But like Trump, more than likely, Trump ain't gonna get it.
Just look. Like AI did this, bro. One more. Like, AI is scary as hell. We're gonna have some time.
That's super petty
as well. But if you
that's
just
super petty,
or even Google, I bet, and just type in Trump arrested AI, I'm sure you will see the pictures. I mean, here's the thing. If you pay enough attention, you'll see that, like, that police officer is kind of blurry. I wish we had the picture up, but has like 7 fingers, and they're all like really curly and weird. In this picture, there are just too many legs going in too many directions. So, like, what the F is going on here? Now, this is the one that I buy the most, but I don't think Trump can run that fast. So the strides are just off. You see what I'm saying?
I don't think he would have ran either. Like, they like, what would, yeah, I mean, because it wasn't even like they wasn't gonna put him in jail. They was gonna he'll be indicted. Yeah, it did. Like, I wouldn't have. Like, I'm glad I didn't see it. I'm judging you. I'm judging you.
For yourselves and get into a plug. They actually out here, man.
But the last part I want to add to this conversation is in terms of like our political focus and what matters to us as we go into, because again, we in 2023. The next presidential election is 2024. All right. We just had, elections that the midterms that we just went through. Mm-hmm. I mean, if y'all want to recap of those, y'all just go check on the channel on our podcast playlist of the episode that I did about when I recapped the midterms. Yeah. But what I feel more comfortable with is if politicians was just like, we're gonna hold other politicians accountable. Like, I don't want to hear you talk about racism. I'm done with that. I don't want to hear you talk about DEI. I don't want to hear you talk about diversity. I don't want to hear you talk, because like I already know that it's very little that any of these politicians can actually produce on their own, and without a focus of anybody else. So don't talk to me about that. But the thing you can do is when your colleague, because that's what y'all are, Democrat, Republican alike, y'all are colleagues. Mm-hmm. When your colleague is doing something illegal, even if a conservative, I'll vote for other conservatives. Conservatives, y'all can pull me over if they are at least saying we are holding other people accountable, other conservatives accountable. I'll vote for a conservative that say that. Did I just mess up my mic?
No, you good.
Okay, I'll vote. I will vote for a conservative that says that. You know what I mean? It wouldn't turn into like, because conservatives don't do half the shit they say for the conservatives anyway. So the lies that they telling about the racist shit that they go endorse, they not gonna do that. But at least if we can come to an agreement, racist white man, like black conservative, if we can come to an agreement that, hey, How about the people in power? We can disagree. Me and you, we can have these ideological differences. The people that are in power, though, like, how about we make sure that at least when they commit crimes, they got to deal with the same legal system we deal with?
Yeah.
Can we focus on that? You ain't got to talk about DEI. Let's make that equal opportunity, lock their ass up.
Yeah.
Not lock up our political opponent, not lock up the person that vote differently, but the nigga who actually committed a crime.
I mean, and that's, everybody wants to say, oh, well, the attempts to lock up Trump are so political. It's playing politics. This is all. That was, the whole argument, or is the whole argument from conservatives toward, Alvin Bragg and the Manhattan District Attorney's offices. This is just them playing politics and this and that. But let's think about it. If you take a step back and you look back at Hillary Clinton, what was the motto? No matter where she turned her head, where she appeared, what was the rally cry?
Lock her up.
Period.
Lock her
up, which was a whole bunch of political nonsense, a whole bunch of political theater, and a whole bunch of all to do for nothing, because the lady didn't commit no crimes, was investigated and found to not have been committed no crimes, and they would still lock her up, chanting. So even the justice system that they say they believe in vindicated her, and that wasn't enough. But all of a sudden, when it's time for Trump to get his, and he did the shit he did, he guilty 5 different ways. Right? If he didn't rape somebody, he was trying to steal votes. If he wasn't trying to steal votes, he was paying for hush money for sexual in misconduct in his relationship. If he wasn't doing that, he was inciting riots and shit on January 6th. Like, pick one, but he did it. And now all of a sudden, when people like lock him up, it's politics. We playing politics. Don't play politics.
I even think, though, even more so, like, y'all have a problem with critical race theory or critical legal studies and looking at the law and saying, something ain't right as it pertains to race, right? How the law is being interpreted is not right as it pertains to race because of the patriarchy too, for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
But us claiming that there are that there are racial disparities that exist in the legal system. Nah, y'all just making that up. Black people commit crimes, whatever. I'm not trying to hear it. But literally, because he's a Democrat, is enough for Congress to send the man a letter talking about we need to look into what you're doing because he's a Democrat. Come on, bro. So I mean, so ultimately, you don't have to. I'm not telling y'all this information to be like let's watch Trump every action, whatever. I personally would enjoy seeing him getting locked up, whatever. It ain't got nothing to do with the larger question of black people as a whole. But damn it, somebody that committed a crime in positions of power that have tried to skirt across it, that have tried to act like that the legal system don't apply to them, when it finally do, damn it, about time.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna dismiss it just because it took too long, and it's still the same legal system. It's still wrong, but damn it, if it gets something right, it's a reason. It's a reason to celebrate. But at the same time, we as black people need to be looking at these situations and these circumstances and understanding like when we talk about holding politicians accountable, we don't need to care about the conversations that they have and the pander to our cultural interests. Are you doing your job? Are you holding your people accountable? Are you looking at your colleagues and when they break the law saying, hey, that ain't what represent what we do, we got to get you up out of here? George Santos is still in the House of Representatives, people.
Yeah.
This man that has...
Be quiet, stop talking. If you just be quiet, it'll all go away.
But stuff comes out. He's a scam artist. Stuff comes out about him every day.
Mm-hmm.
He's still in the House of Representatives. That's telling me that people that all you got to do is get to that side and they will rock with your criminality or whatever. You know what I mean? So like we as a people need to be focused on the question of like how do we make sure that these people are being held accountable and especially when we put them in positions of power.
Yeah. We ain't got to agree. So, your politics, your outlook can be different. And elections 50-50. Your side wins sometimes, the other side wins sometimes. You wait until everybody else get another chance to show back up and win the ballots they can and change some shit, do some shit another way. That is just a part of being a generational participant in the way that politics works. And that's fine. But when you break the law, you should just have to pay for those penalties, right? I could deal with
law and order president.
You know what I'm saying? But come on now. The jokes write themselves. The jokes write themselves. But that's that. What's up to Winter Dragon for popping in here? And shout out to everybody in the comments for helping us push through some of this political chop and think about some things. We can transition though, because now we're not talking about Trump. Now we really are talking about some shit that affect us on a day-to-day, from moment to moment. type level. So, Plug, what's the next conversation we're having?
So the next dialogue we about to get into is about a phrase that is very ambiguous,
Mm-hmm.
but it has impact. The black agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it because so more recently, what's happening specifically those people who are aware of the YouTube community, Michi X. You know what I'm saying? Is putting together a Black Agenda conference. She has a Black
Mm-hmm.
Agenda website, conference website, where we're gonna talk about a few of the things that's important to them. But it sparked a conversation about like what that actually is. I mean, who's included in it and how it clashes. You know what I'm saying? If there are things that clash. You feel me? So to get it started, Toya, what was some of the conversation you were saying that was important as we go into this election cycle to think
Okay.
about when we talk about the Black Agenda?
So, first thing, two things. One, when I came across this organization, what's the name of the organization? The Black uh let me look at it. Look it up so I can make sure I'm talking about the organization correctly. But I came across this video on IG, and my first impulse was to be like, you know, um, every other community has an agenda, right? We always kind of throw around the gay agenda for good, bad, or right or wrong or indifferent, but they seem to have an agenda. Latin people, right, and their focus is on rights, on immigration. Like, it always seems like Black people get so upset about the fact that these other communities either have an agenda or have agenda items that are being pushed, that are being pressed, that are people are rallying for and rallying around. But everybody's favorite comment is like, Black people ain't got no comments, no really stake in nothing. They don't really have anybody pushing for their specific needs or our specific needs or what happens to us, and then turn and really redressing that. And so, I'm looking at right now, it's March 2023. We know election season and the election engine is revving. We already had midterm elections. We already had a lot of big conversations. We looked at the cost of having Herschel Walker versus the Reverend
Raphael
down,
Warnock.
yeah, Raphael Warnock, and his position. Like, these are big stake things that we have going. And so I just started to really think back to the elections in 2020 and how there was a lot of conversation around the Black agenda. Trump had ideas and specific plan. Was it the platinum plan for
Mm-hmm.
Black people in specific ways? He wanted to kind of appeal to us and our agenda and what we wanted and what we needed for our communities and talk about what he could provide. And then we know that, for better or for worse, Ice Cube popped out and was like, hey, we need to be having serious, direct conversations with the powers that be about what our needs are, what our community needs, what this, what our agenda is, what matters
Mm-hmm.
to us, so that they can put that on their priority list and push it. And that got a lot of different varying feedback. A lot of people were either saying, bro, who elected you to be the representative for the niggas? Who, but also kudos and shout out to a hip hop artist and somebody in music who we
For
always
having some shit
criticize.
like that. Yeah.
We always criticize musicians for not doing enough, or just saying the wrong things, or not being politically active. So shout out to somebody in that field, both a producer, a musician, an actor at this point, jumping in and being like, what's the vibes, here's what we can do. And so I think that just really started to get me thinking about what, and it's not the first time, right? As Black people, we have had to sit and consider what the Black agenda is, what's on it, how we negotiate, how we prioritize what that list
Mm-hmm.
is, and how we go about accessing some things. And so it really got me thinking and very interested in how we go from that. So the organization that created the video is called the Black Agenda Movement, right? The Black
Mm-hmm.
Agenda Movement. And they are an organization that the Plug kind of looked into, but that's what we were getting with the Michi X and some of the other major role players who are actually holding a conference, right? So the caption on the video that I came across about the Black Agenda movement's new actions are as follows. They say, meet me in Atlanta for the Black Agenda Conference. We won't just be talking. We're bringing solution sessions to equip you to be the best, or to be the change we seek, because nobody is coming to save us. That's our job. Let's get to it. This one is in Atlanta. From what I saw in the comments, this is not the first conference of its type, but rather these conversations move around the country, including one being up in Seattle. And I think the dates of this are coming up in April, like April 24th, 25th, something like that. So an opportunity, yeah. The Black Agenda Conference is April 22nd and 23rd. Like I said, in Atlanta, Georgia. And you can go to the Black Agenda Movement at the Black Agenda Movement on Instagram to learn more about it. But that's what got me thinking, just like, how are we approaching agenda setting in 2023 for Black people, particularly if we're taking the same strategy as the Donald Trumps and even Ice Cubes, is making specific demands on major stakeholders and role players that make the decisions that lead this country, right? So, what what are you thinking? What are you pulling up?
So all right. So this is the thing about the Black agenda and just like as a concept, right? I feel like we can't make the argument that blackness is not monolithic and then assume that we can have like a singular agenda.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it just don't work like that. Like black people want different black people want have a common goal but want different things. You know what I mean? And so it's like I think it becomes kind of productive because what ends up happening is people start looking at stuff like what fits within it is the things that look like they blackness.
Mm-hmm.
But anything that's outside of what they blackness look like shouldn't be a part of the Black agenda. You know what I mean? And so the problem that we run into is like understanding that okay, we have a common goal, but it's different things that we want at the end of that. So it's like it's more so the way that I would typically frame it is like what I think the Black agenda should be is just Black autonomy. Black people being able to pursue things in life without having to deal with the stress and the complications of racism, the barriers of racism and white supremacy, and you know what I mean, and anti-blackness. You because like a lot of things that Black people don't do. Like we even have a segment that we gonna re-explore at some point, but Black people don't. You know what I mean? And it's like Black people don't do this. Black people don't do that. Like Black people ain't worried about this type of thing. Black people ain't focused on this. And it's like, nigga, if it's something in the world that's happening, it's Black people that's focused on it, good and bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So also, so the goal of the Black agenda should be challenging the things that creates barriers for Black people, regardless of what it is. Now again, we talking about things that are I ain't gonna say productive for the Black community, but that's not detrimental. You know what I'm saying, to Black people and what Black people care about.
So here's an obstacle that I deal with when I hear you talk about Black autonomy, right? Is you specifically describe it as a dealing and a grappling with and a removal of barriers that keep Black people from basically doing and living how they want to. But what do we do and how do we navigate Black people being those barriers or those obstacles for other Black people, right? So, for example, right, the autonomy to be queer, right, is the ability to determine whether it be gender expression or sexual orientation or both, what that is. But there are people who have the perception that that lifestyle is bad for the Black community, or that it seeps into and over into and bleeds and indoctrinates and tantalizes and influences, you know, young people or old people or whatever to do things that people feel like is detrimental to the Black community, right? Then that's where I kind of like that Black autonomy. I think it becomes under question because then you have other Black people undermining other Black people's Black autonomy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's so. Like, what do you think about that?
So that's why I say it's that like when if your blackness undermines the autonomy of somebody else's blackness, then it's anti-black, right? And I hope I'm not jumping ahead by pointing this out, but this is like the clash between when people say like the Black agenda and the gay agenda, right? Like as if there aren't any gay Black people, or people have to choose between their blackness and their gayness.
Or yeah, you know, here's my favorite. The feminist agenda, right? There's a guy that I follow who I have and it's turned in the past since had a lot of respect for, named Mike Rashid, who is a boxer, big cocky dude, like has just really been a presence, I guess, in that particular and he been on his feminism is bullshit grind here lately. And I'm like, no, we lost you, bro. This was not about, this was not the vibes beforehand, but really very critical of feminism I don't think he really dates a lot of black women, but the way that feminism, instead of calling it black, it's new age feminism, and how,
Right.
black women see themselves and understand themselves as role players and leaders on certain issues, right? For a lot of people, that's not it, right? I think even one of the individuals who you talked about who was shaping the Black Agenda Conference is an individual who has a certain political orientation that might undermine black women being in the driver's seat in certain instances. And so that's where I'm just
Or
like,
more
so
so
are we
queer
calling them
people being
anti-black
in
too?
the yeah. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think I stand by the statement that there are, like, you can't say you care about black people if you don't care about gay black people. You can't say you don't care about black people if you say if that's not including black women or any type of, what I'm saying, like, outside of the norm of the traditional patriarchy, right? Like, if everything outside of that norm is excluded and all of those things are different agendas to you, then that's anti-black, right? Because it's what, because what it's doing is it's maintaining what Bell Hooks, who rest in peace, I'm saying, coined as plantation patriarchy, right? Your blackness is whiteness in blackface. It's black men. It's the traditional heteronormative cisgender black male dictating what blackness looks like, the same way the cisgender white man dictates what society looks like. You feel
Exactly.
me? And so any form of that replication, anything that we're doing that's represented or reflected in how white men dictate society is a manifestation of anti-blackness.
Absolutely.
So
It becomes and one of my favorite words is a microcosm, right? A smaller version or a smaller iteration of a larger phenomenon.
right. I mean, and it's just a question of how those larger phenomena dictate how we engage each other interpersonally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and because it's like and I think people try to cover it up and be like, well, I don't really care what you do in your bedroom, but when it comes to what black people, how are you separating? It's still black people in that bedroom. It's still
Yeah.
black people engaging in those acts, right? So, like, you as a cisgender individual are separating them from their blackness.
Yeah.
You're denying them their blackness because of how you view their sexuality,
And it's the
which is
same black
something that is
people.
anti-black. Go ahead.
It's the same black people in that bedroom that's then showing up, and they're not just showing up to your jobs, and they're not just showing up in the places that you work or that you play. They're showing up to fight for you and with you a lot of the time, right? That's the gotcha. The same people that you criticizing and that shit just don't got job with what black people should be doing is the same ones that front lines, protesting, fighting, organizing, right? Not
Right.
giving the system hell, and also just living amongst you are in your daily life, is your cousin, is your auntie, is whoever to you, right? But you have a problem with that component of their life, and so that should problematize your politics some for sure.
And even when it comes from, like, this idea of feminism, right? The way that the black men that criticize feminism, the way that they interpolate white feminism on the black women
Come
that
on,
talk about particular things, like,
come
that's
on.
another form of anti-blackness. That's
Let's
that
talk about nuance.
patriarchal anti-blackness.
Let's talk
Because
about
black
nuance.
black women, if you ain't read the Coleman River Collective, don't talk to me about black feminism.
Yeah,
Like, if you're regurgitating white feminist talking points to say this is what's wrong with black women, you have no idea what's going on in the minds of black women.
yeah.
Because and what's crazy, the Coleman River Collective has a, like, black feminism has a very specific critique of white feminists.
Absolutely.
Right? They say straight up the distinction that we have, or one of the main distinctions that we I'm sorry, I just, I mean, like, this
No,
is something that,
No,
go
I'm
ahead.
laughing only because I agree. Like, black
Oh,
feminism is birthed from I'm sick of you niggas and I don't fuck with you hoes. Right? Like,
so these are women who were a part of help building Black Panthers and Black nationalist movements, but then at the same time was looking at white feminists and, like, the shit that y'all on, that don't work for us
that
like
ain't
that.
how I plays
Like,
out at my home.
and
Right?
they specifically say, and this is what messed me up about the criticism of black feminists being running Black Lives Matter. They specifically say the distinction that they make between themselves and white feminists is the relationship they have with their men and their children.
Come on, yo.
So you
But
can't say black women that are running with a feminist are running with a feminism that detaches them from black communities.
ask a black man, as soon as you call yourself a feminist, that's your problem. You take these issues that these white women got with they man and these white women got in the world, and you bring it into our home and our relationship and throw off the whole dynamic of how we function and how we move as a unit. And that's like, bruh, that is first wave white feminism that got passed down generationally to you as a bad explanation of what feminism is. Y'all just been playing the game of telephone. You know how to play telephone, where you start and you get the message. But by the time
Mm-hmm.
you tell somebody, listen, you gotta whisper it, right? And then you whisper it to the person, and by the time it get to you or to the
It's
end of
some
the line,
bullshit.
it's completely different from how it
Right.
started out. And now it's just a reliving of the worst game of telephone ever, where nobody really had, even from the beginning, a proper understanding of how feminism works and how it works in the favor in large parts of Black communities writ large.
I will go as far as to say that the Black feminist agenda is the best agenda for Black people.
Yeah.
Because not only are Black feminists at the forefront of protests that have to do with the death of Black men, they're also saying, hey, let's not forget about these queer Black folk. Let's not forget about, let's use like language that's inclusive for Black people that include all of our forms of Blackness.
Yeah. If you
What do
ain't,
y'all?
my bad.
No, I'm it because the thing about it is, it's like what messes me up, because I feel the same way about the word nigga. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Black people are routinely denied the ability to define these phenomena for themselves and
True.
create meanings for these things for themselves. When we talk about a Black agenda, our issue should not be that the way that power is reflected in our community looks like that of the white man's.
Yeah.
Our issue should not be that I, as a Black man, can't do and be and behave and treat other people the way that white men treat people.
Come on.
That can't be an attachment to our agenda.
That's a terrible metric.
You feel me? Like our agenda can't be situated around like representing politics that we know we ain't even included in. Yeah. Whiteness don't include Black men in their perspective of men.
Yeah.
They don't include Black men when they think of that that pure masculinity. Our shit is more animalistic.
Yes.
We're beasts. Our masculinity is that of a beast.
Yeah. Savage.
Not a exactly. Yeah. So when we're having a conversation about what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and people pointing out, oh, well, Black women are focusing on feminism and they doing these things. If niggas really sat down and understood what Black feminists want and what they represented and what they stood for, they would understand that, hey, this is the best approach that we have. But because they want to maintain heteronormativity, they want to maintain certain forms of patriarchy, they want to maintain certain perspectives of masculinity that have been denied to them, mm-hmm. right? Then they turn us setting an agenda and understanding what's important into making sure it look like what they think Blackness should look like, dismissing and denying other people.
So this is what I want to ask this question in that regard, right? Because when you don't have a knowledge of first, second, third wave feminism, when you haven't read the Combahee River Collective, when you don't know who Audre Lorde is, when you don't know who Bell Hooks is, when you don't know who Brittany Cooper is, right? You set yourself behind Feminista Jones, so many different people.
Patricia Hill Collins, Kimberly Crenshaw. We can keep going. Like,
so
you know what I mean?
We find ourselves then, I think, right, a lot of people are saying you're not reading from the right sections of the library. You're not pulling from the right schools of thought to even create a solid Black agenda, which is, I think, why Donald Trump clearly got shouted down. Because, nigga, what do you know about what Black people want, need, and who have you consulted with to make that plan? But also even Ice Cube. Like, hold on, bro. What brand of, Black agendas are you setting? And so I guess the question becomes, is Black agenda setting or organizing something we should intentionally be doing this election cycle? Like, we tried that last election cycle, and it seemed like both versions of specific plans for Black people got shot down for a litany of reasons. And so is that something that we need to be gearing up and doing? Like, this conference is coming up. Should we be seeking opportunities in moments like this? Like, it's forming a Black agenda, the approach and strategy, saying, hey, Capitol Hill, legislators, policymakers, presidential candidates, this is what we want. Should that be our approach again, or was that not successful based on what we saw from Trump and from Ice Cube?
I would say it should be our approach.
Okay.
It should be our approach. But I think it's few things that are like true nationally, like that's just very like across the board, right? Mm-hmm. Like policing is always something that we hang our hat on. Just prison, like the criminal justice system, the war on drugs, everything associated with that usually gets wrapped up into how we look at Black issues. But I feel like that is such a local issue. Like policing is in a federalist society, in a society dictated on federalism, governments dictated on federalism. Policing is uniquely something that's local, right? So like even us looking to Capitol Hill to do something about policing in local communities, we setting ourselves up for failure because they're going to give us the talking points we want, but they don't have the capacity to make the changes that we want to see.
There's just some
So
jurisdictional barriers to it. It sounds like.
right. So like if we're saying like that's that like I have that locally, all these a bunch of independent groups of people, you know what I'm saying, making that demand locally. But I think one thing that should be extremely important, and this is something that we started with, and I feel like we're gonna talk about this all year because I cannot wait until 2024. And I'm telling y'all that everything that we've been talking about on the chop up, I told y'all this was about to happen. But the new landscape for the culture war for conservatives is education.
Yeah.
Like it's been the police before. It's
New
been
battleground for sure.
yeah, queerness before. Right now, it's education. So the pushback against critical race theory, the pushback against wokeness, is a fight for the minds of Black people and what we're and how our children in public education is educated on the history of their people.
Yeah.
Right. It's and the thing that we have to recognize is that across the country, school boards are 70% white nationwide. That means that ultimately white people are sitting are dictating the way our public schools are functioning. You feel me? We can have conversations about charter schools, but it's so many Black kids that get filtered through public schools. Like what you see in Houston, the Houston Independent School District has been taken over by conservatives, right?
By Governor Greg Abbott, the one of the two worst conservative in this country.
I mean, you call him DeSantis Jr. Everything that Ron DeSantis does, Greg Abbott attempts to replicate. And so when you have these people that are straight up like, hey, nah, like we are about to try to make it illegal to teach children about things like racism, to teach children things about queerness and about identity, right? Like that's how you know it's like, all right, 70% white folk, 70+% white folk on school boards across the country. All right, yeah, we already behind.
You know, that's one thing, and that's why I agree insofar as we have to meet them where they taking up the battle at, right?
Space, yeah.
I think if I could give conservatives any credit for anything, it is the ability to make palpable the values, the ethics, the morals, the beliefs that they as a political party hold. They take the intangibles and they make it very real for you. They materialize barriers, shifts, changes, amendments, repeals, like all that shit, like determines people's real day-to-day lives, right? It's not just a bunch of conversations, it's not just a bunch of rally cries, it's not just a bunch of messed up speaking points. They are like, they translate it into actual material action that affects real ass people. And so if the landscape is education, then yes, right, then like Black education, like I think that the Black Agenda conference is going to be dealing with or having conversations about the school to prison pipeline, which we already know is an incessant issue that has been talking about for at least the last 2.5-3 decades, right? Since the 90s and 2000s, when we started to see various truancy laws, the dilapidations of certain districts, then creating certain conditions for poor conditions for students to learn in, including their criminalization, right? A lot of weird things have happened over the last few decades in that regard. But I think like even that, right? Those are separate issues, right? We talk about the school to prison pipeline. We want to take up that battle, but I think if we're going to make some agenda setting and have these meetings, like they need us maybe at the Black Agenda conference to be like, let's focus on the conservative attack on education real quick, because I don't think that'll be in 2023. This is what I'm thinking. Like, I want to have political agenda making, but I think it has to be led by people who have the political prowess and the political. We can't just be like activists mad and angry about shit happening in the streets. That's important too. Right? We need to be talking about the way that criminalization happens on a bunch of different ways. The school to prison pipeline happens, lack of access to money and resources and shit, like all of that's important. But also the people at these conferences, we need to have political analysts there, right? People like LBS, right? Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle organization out of Baltimore, some of, the folks we call brothers, you know what I'm saying, work specifically in political think tanks in the state of Maryland to make sure that like child jails and prisons that are kids are not being built, right, and taking tax dollars in order to do those things, that they're making sure that the infrastructure and the conversations about curriculum and curriculum development are things that they care about and think about in terms of Black children. Those are the types of conversations we need at these conferences not just one wildly swinging at some of the same issues that we've had for generations. Now the conversation has to shift to how do we take these same grievances and issues and put what they're doing under a microscope to find the overlays so we can make sure that
Right.
we working smarter and not just kind of pounding our chest and being upset
Yeah.
about the same shit we've always been upset about, that they don't give a shit about changing in a meaningful material way already.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think we just gotta be okay with with other blackness not looking like our shit.
Yeah.
Like even outside of like the institutional shit, like I think we have to recognize that when we say black agenda, we're erasing gay black people. Like when we say black agenda versus gay agenda, it's a straight erasure. That's
Yeah.
what's happening. You know what I mean? When we talk about, oh, it's the feminist agenda versus the black agenda, you erasing black women. You know what I mean? And so we have to have a way to be like, even if there's this whatever uncomfortability, you know what I mean? Like when it comes to queerness and all this other shit. Like there has to be a understanding that when when they're being harassed by the police, it ain't because of their queerness. When they get pulled over, the cop don't know if they gay or not.
Exactly.
Don't know if they trans or not, right? And it's only exacerbated when they find out.
Yeah.
You feel me? So it's one of them things where it's like black people. You gotta let other people be black people. I could care less, and that goes for like black conservatives are still black people.
Absolutely.
Right? They're black people who shoot themselves in the foot. They're black people whose politics are destructive and detrimental to black people. But shit, that's more of some karma that they gonna have to deal with when that same system that they cut for and that they kiss ass for end up, you know what I'm saying, fucking them over in the long run.
You see how they've been doing? They did Herman Cain when he died. How they did Diamond when she died. Bro, they don't care about y'all. They gonna chew you up and spit you out when you're Herschel Walker. When the last time we heard his name?
Yeah,
What's he up to these days?
Took that L and went on about his business.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so you end up making the bed and lying in it eventually if that's the route you choose. But I guess I want to start to narrow this conversation a little bit and bring it home by talking a bit. Shout out to Karia, the introvert who is usually in the comments, tapped in with us, might listen to it later, but is always thinking about the Chop Up Show, so much so that they dropped a comment on one of the vids talking about reparations, right? We know reparations to be one of the easiest places that some people might say, all right, the only thing on Black agenda should be getting back what we are owed. Like all of the rest of this, they probably not gonna do it. They're not finna make no specific policies for us. Remember, Obama had to be everybody's president, not a Black president, right? That's what we keep hearing, is that there's no way for the system to refine itself in a way that targets the needs of Black people. So instead, scrape their whole model, reparations for everybody. The city of San Francisco has recently been in the front of the conversation about that, right? And that's because I think about a week or two ago, and Plug can pull up the article from the NBC Bay Area News, but about 2 weeks ago, there was an introduction of this idea that the San Francisco NAACP, or actually rather the African American Reparations Advisory Committee in San Francisco, made the projection and talked about reparations to the sum of $5 million being paid to individual Black residents of San Francisco, right? Reparations in the amount of $5 million be paid to representatives in San Francisco. Now, what's interesting about this plan of $5 million payments for reparations is that one of the most historic Black organizations, right? One of the most legendary agenda setting organizations in the NAACP looked at that and was like, nah. Right? So the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People looked at the opportunity to give Black people $5 million apiece in San Francisco and said that's not a thing. And I want to talk a little bit more about the specific statements being made about this. While the Plug pulls it up, I'll start reading and telling you, I want to give you some context for the criticisms that are being made. Led by Reverend Amos Brown, the president of San Francisco NAACP and pastor of the Third Baptist Church, said the organization supports the efforts, but criticized how the city is handling the draft plan. According to the San Francisco NAACP, the much talked about lump sum of $5 million payments is not likely to be put into action by the city and is therefore giving Black residents of San Francisco false hopes. Not one member of that board said we support reparations with cash payments. And with a definite plan of how to do it and a timeline of how to do it, said Brown. It continues, a draft of that plan put out by the African American Reparations Advisory Committee in December currently has over 100 recommendations for how San Francisco can address the legacies of systemic racism in the city. Some of the most notable are a one-time $5 million payment to eligible adults, guaranteed annual, here's another option, guaranteed annual incomes of at least $97,000 a year, and another solution that they are tossing around is $1 homes for African American families. The organization added that it supports cash payments but called the $5 million an arbitrary number and said that the payment should have public rationale for the dollar amount and the method of how the money will be allocated. Right? So the NAACP comes out and is like, reparations is cute. Definitely an important agenda item, something we should be concerned about. But this $5 million is some shit, right? The Reverend even actually in a news clip we saw, it's just like there's no basis for this number. It is just a very random, arbitrary number that some people sitting around in the meeting was like, we should give everybody $5 million. And they ran with it. And so I guess based on what I just read and the feedback about like the inability to rationalize that amount of money or, where we going to get it from. And I think those are concerns about the skepticism other people will have. You know what I mean? Like, I think what he's trying to say is this is going to cause and stir up some problems. Like, how do you justify giving every Black, I'm going to get $5 million? Like, how do you explain that to the Latina family who stays down the street or the white person trying to survive in one of the most expensive cities in the world, right? Like, how do you explain that $5 million to people? So I guess my question to you, Plug, and to the chat is, should we care about how other people feel about these measures? And I guess the second part of my question is, should we be worried about other groups like losing respect for us or having issues or antagonizing Black people? Should we care what other people think about this? The Plug, you're for the people listening at home, what is your answer?
Not at all. Okay. Not at all. No, we should care none. Because this is the issue, right? The circumstances of Blackness, they're not making it their issue, right? When we're enduring, what it is that, when we're looking at the disparities, it's pointing the finger. It's Black people suffer those type of disparities because they go to jail. Black people suffer those disparities because they choose to use drugs. They don't have personal responsibility. Like there's all these there's nothing that we can do to get them to understand when the framing of Black people has already been situated around criminality. Like we can't get, if they were going to be on our side, the ones that's already on our side is like reparations, understood, right? Because you don't hear people protesting Chinese reparations, right? There was very like a lot of homophobes who were up on game, but there was nobody protesting the gay reparations. That didn't make a big headline when there were there were gay couples who were denied certain marital rights through or tax rights. You know what I'm saying? Because they were in same-sex marriages, they were denied certain rights. So when the federal government recognized it, they cut the checks. They said y'all are owed this money based on what the money y'all couldn't get for how long y'all been married. It wasn't no conversation. So we know that reparations is a practice. It is. That's not something that's unique to what Black people are asking for. The term in and of itself is used to describe when a government is going about making amends for a harm that it represented, empowered. The government made it possible. So no, I could care less. Because the protest is a direct representation of what they think Black people deserve in the first place.
Okay. So the people, you said no, we shouldn't care. The people agree with you, right? Apocalypse. Let me see. Girl Nettle, I think, said we shouldn't care. J Universe. Winter Dragon said no, we shouldn't care. Here's where I think I disagree. Because we know this politics shit is chess, not checkers, right? Now, before Kanye did what Kanye does, he had a lot of one-liners, one that will always resonate with niggas who understand how capitalism works, how money flows, and the intersections between being Black and having money. Kanye West simply said, even if you're in a Benz, you're still a nigga in a coupe. And so My issue and my fear with, and why I care about how other people are going to feel about shit, is that I feel like even those people who feel like reparations are good and necessary will squint their eyes at the $5 million price tag on that. Reason being is I think it will be I think the baselessness of it, the lack of calculation or justification for why that number will allow for them to say, I get reparations, but why that much? And the reason why that matters is it'll put Black people in a situation where they will experience anti-Blackness, but because the government gives you all what you want and welfare always works for you and you get checks cut to you and you get this $5 million, then you shouldn't have grievances and you shouldn't have problems and you shouldn't be able to complain about the very material and palpable ways that you could be disrespected, that you could be excluded, that you could be engaged with, not because of how much money you do or don't have, but because you're a nigga. Right. And so I think that gives, I think the reason why we have to care, I'll punctuate it by saying this, is that it gives non-Black people, I won't even just say white people, because we know about the select, a lot of people, I'll give you across the diaspora. Still a lot of our brothers and sisters who feel like we get shit spoon-fed to us. That life is a whole lot better than we claim for it to be. And that we're complaining about a whole bunch of nothing. They're gonna double down on that shit if we get $5 million. You got a lot of Latin people who say, y'all don't work hard, y'all don't do shit, all y'all do is complain. We the ones doing the jobs, we the ones doing this and the other. So you gonna get some shit.
Right, but Toya, think about it though.
Listen, I'm just saying, chess means we make this move and we feel good. Even Girl Nettles, I think, said, shit, I can't hear him if I'm in my mansion. You got to go get some groceries sometime.
Yeah, I may be in a nigga in the coupe,
come out that mansion and go drive your Lamborghini sometime.
Look, I may be a nigga in the coupe, but I'm that nigga in the coupe.
Hey, bro, you know what I'm saying?
That nigga in the coupe. I'm that nigga in the AMG.
That's
what you mean,
saying, bro?
Look,
I'm thinking about the ways that people are able to twist and contrive every progressive step we've taken in this country as a reason why we should shut the fuck up and be happy and grateful for what we got. It's trash, but that's how they gonna do it. That's all I'm saying.
How do you kill a diss ad?
You impact on it.
Well, that's one way to kill it. Take out its uniqueness.
True.
It's not unique. That shit gonna happen. Nuclear war, it's coming. It's coming. But it's so because this is what I mean by that. It's non-unique in the sense that they say that now and we getting welfare checks. they're telling us that we get spoon-fed in the projects, Toya. They say we get spoon-fed because they give us WIC. And then they make sure that you got to get drug tested if you on WIC. We're gonna come and do inspections. You can't have how many people living in this house? Who doing what? How many kids you having? You been to you on birth control? That's what comes with being in poverty. So who cares if they man, y'all being spoon fed? Okay, cool, because at least we are spoon fed this time. At least we are. You know what I mean? We sitting because again, I get the concern and I get the beef and I get the pushback. Now, and there's another part of it that we gonna probably end the conversation on. When it comes to people just using hey, 5 million for everybody, that's whatever. Yeah. But in a world, it's because we're gonna talk about that part next. But in a world where this is something like it's feasible and folks is hey, 5 million. Y'all agree?
It's not feasible. I think that's the criticism. Is it's not feasible and it is not realistic. So any kind of doubling down on the idea that this is the route to go, only either if you satisfy it, bleeds vulnerable communities in just a city that's already hard as shit to live in. And where's the $5 million gonna come from? They can't just print it or we're gonna end up in a recession. So it's gonna come from places, areas, pots that is going to piss people off because you got to get the money from somewhere. And so I don't know if it should be 5 million. And this is why I was starting, and I'll end it by saying this. I think there are individuals who will advocate for reparations with a much more precise and probably lower number than 5 million because they're willing to say, I get reparations with $5 million. They can get whatever.
I just think that create conflict though, Toya, because it's nigga, because
to be clear, I want $5 million. I want it bad.
Thank you.
I want it bad. I just don't want it so bad that it sets up generations after me receiving it right? That then allow for them to experience the worst parts of anti-blackness, regardless of the money that they can usually pay themselves, right? That's some shit you can't get around. You know what I'm saying? What's $5 million if you can't? If you, it's stories all over about people who want to either buy, sell houses or sell houses, and when they put their name on the market and they make it clear that it's black people, either houses to be sold or houses to be bought, the prices do all types of crazy shit that they don't do when white people are trying to buy those same properties. That's what I'm talking about. That don't get us out of that. In fact, that makes them say, shit, you got $5 million to spend. I'm gonna run that shit through the roof. I'm gonna tax you and then make you prove it. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's where I'm saying we can't necessarily get out of that. The materialization, the chess game of it always means they're going to try to outpace any meaningful gesture of us equalizing the playing field.
Yeah.
And so giving them more ammunition to do that is what makes me reluctant. Only because, again, they doing it to us now in Section 8. They doing it to us now on welfare. Wait till they find out niggas got 5 million.
Be mad. Because look,
Hey.
as much as because I before we go, I do want to talk about, you know what I'm saying,
And I want
like
to talk about these
the
options
viability
and ask what's the best one.
So that's why I just want to say this real quick. I'm gonna keep it quick just so we can move on to this next point. Like outside of, we can talk about, all right, how it's gonna get done. We can talk about it. Mm-hmm. But I think we're fighting an uphill battle when we start putting limits on what we should get based on how other people gonna respond. Because black people getting anything has always pissed off everybody. True. You know what I mean? So at least that, like, okay, are the Latino people gonna be mad? Sure. Are white people gonna be mad? The poor white people in the trailer park, are they gonna be mad? Sure. But guess what? They was already mad at your black ass when you was just working 9 to 5, not on welfare, right? Because a lot of us not getting food stamps, because a lot of us ain't. Yeah. And you just paying, you struggling to pay rent and struggling to live your life, and you not getting none of these benefits. You know what I mean? And you have to deal with the weight of blackness in this country. Hey, be mad. You was gonna be mad anyway. Go ahead though.
I mean, a lot of great comments, y'all, popping off in the chat. So I'm kind of trying to keep up with it. Top He Got Beat say we have to place ourselves in the same position they place themselves politically, and I think that comment can either agree or disagree with what I'm saying. But I think it's something that can be conceived and should be perceived as important. Girl Netta says something interesting. If you waste your money, that's on you. But at least we close the wage gap between blacks and whites, right? So yes. I mean, giving black people a fighting chance to then take generational wealth and create businesses, to create communities, to create areas. I get that, right? Cleavage is a way for, we might fool around with our 5 million and reinstate segregation on your asses. Just like really like have the power to get away. I mean, that would be amazing, to see. And so I don't doubt that. I still
niggas thought they own country with reparations bread.
About how it plays. Danielle says the true welfare queens are billionaires who during a pandemic still managed to manipulate out over $1 trillion through tax-paying dollars. Give me my money. Give me the bag. Danielle, you preaching right there. I can't even hold you.
Marjorie Taylor Greene was complaining about welfare and reparations and entitlements, while her millionaire ass was getting PPP loan money. Yeah. Stop playing with me.
I think if we get, I ain't gonna lie, and this, because comments like what Nakia said is what kind of strike me, right? Those reparations will ultimately end up in communities that aren't ours. It's already happening. But anyways, run me my money. I think here, I don't know. I'm into hoops and hurdles in this position, because I think if you get your money, you gotta like take a class on like wealth. And it's because that's the biggest criticism, is there is not enough financial knowledge. I mean, that's some of the reasons why people say black people can't get ahead, is that they just don't understand how to spend their money. And it's like, no, nigga, black people can get ahead because they ain't got no generational wealth. That's part of it, but that's not all of it. Like, just you can't save money you don't have. But I really feel like there ought to be a intentional orientation to, if we're closing the gap, as Girl Nettles has suggested, and that we get this 1.5 million that sets us on a correct path, that we get educated from us about how to spend our monies. We specifically rally together to get these black credit unions and black institutions that are looking out for our money and stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just do things to protect the money a little bit more effectively. Right? So, I mean, shout out to Consciously Education's Elevation. So,
looking at
that's my brother, man. I want to ask y'all this question, and this would be the last way that the last thing I have to add to this. And then I'll turn it back over to the plug. But there was a couple of methods The African American, what's the name of that organization? Reparations Advisory Committee. The African American Reparations Advisory Committee came up with over 100 recommendations for how to deal with reparations. They said $5 million per eligible adult, right? They said $97,000 a year. I'm assuming for the rest of your natural born life.
Like
They said $1 homes for African American families, and I want to add in the option of free college for Black people, for Black kids, right? Free college education, and dare I say, an elimination of college debt for Black people. Okay,
that's yeah.
out of those options, and you can only choose one. Which one sounds the best? Which one sounds the best? I'll repeat the options. Chat, we need y'all to go up real quick and talk about which one y'all think is the best. But in terms of reparations, what's better? $5 million per eligible adult, $97,000 a year for the rest of your life, $1 homes for Black Americans, free college, and or the elimination of student debt for all Black students in this country. Okay. Girl Nettle said $1 homes. I'm gonna say it one more time because I know there's a lag. But why y'all thinking? Why y'all talking? Just so that you can be massaging in your head and picturing it. This bag of money versus this bag of money versus this. I'm gonna say it one more time and then Plug. You let us know. $5 million per eligible adult. $97,000 a year until you die. $1 homes for Black people. Free college for future generations. So Black kids go to college for free for the rest of their life. Or the removal of full student loans and student loan debt for Black people.
I'm gonna go with the 97, the 97K a year.
97K a year.
Yeah, 97K a year. Keep niggas to be straight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like niggas to be straight. Like that's like that. I mean, now there was a recent report that came out that kind of broke down how like 100K depreciates in different places. Like 100K in New York is like 36K.
Yeah.
It's depreciated down at 30. You know what I'm
right.
saying? Shit like that because of like cost of living. What's crazy is Long Beach was on that bitch.
Huh.
Long Beach was like top 5 depreciation.
I believe
of 100K.
I believe it.
I didn't see that life. I loved Long Beach. Like I live and die by Long Beach. I tell niggas to this day.
It's one of my favorite cities around here, but
you know what I'm saying. But I would have to say 97K because I think and call it the socialist in me, call it the leftist in me. I'm cool with. I think a universal income is important in a social in a capitalist society, right? Because people shouldn't die because they can't afford to exist.
Yeah, and I still think that doesn't undermine innovation and competition, right? We
we know that that's a myth.
Exactly, right? With a basic universal income, everybody's good. You want to be better than good. If you really want to be out here, probably like shit, we can still sell you our things. You can still want to desire this elevated lifestyle. You just can know that you can go home and just not have a Nintendo Switch. You can just go home and just not drive a Tesla, but you can still go to work. You can still have a roof over your head. Like that's cool, right? And so
still have like a base level. Now, I want to push back against the $1 homes though. What I think how that could be the most detrimental one, because what ends up happening is people pay $1 for them homes. But then that gives them the ability to get things like mortgages, right? Like to get loans on their $1 home, right? Which could possibly end up putting them in a type of debt to where even though they paid $1 for that house, the debt that they created, they made it to where the bank ended up taking their house and now the bank selling their house for $30,000. See what I'm saying? So it's like like those cash money, fiat currency. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that shit, like a consistent supply of cash money, that those liquid assets, like keeps niggas like I can get food. You know what I'm saying? I can get to where I need to go. I can get to where I need to be. Right? I can pay rent. Make it 97K. You can pay rent somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Girl Nettle said I'm gonna buy 1,000 homes. I like it. But we can't. I don't know. I think an issue there. I don't know. It would be interesting to see because we don't want to replicate the issues in the housing market where a whole bunch of people own shit and then we're not making it available to the homeless, which is a huge, money suck out of our society. that then also we pay for as taxpayers and stuff like that. So you don't want to take a whole bunch of houses and take them away from people who could be in them, even just because they're not black, and then create a world where we are also allowing the systemic violence of homelessness. We pay for that as a society, as a public. We pay for homeless people who are on the streets and different services that are provided, drug prevention, this shelter, that, like, we pay that for that money, right? So I think that'll be something
even when they get locked up,
when they go to all of it, medical care, all of that, right? When they pass away and they have to be buried, those are all costs that fall on the average taxpayer. So things to consider. A couple other people, Winter Dragon says, I think that's a low ball. College should be free for all. I like the elimination of student debt, but I think that should be a plus in my opinion. And that's what I was kind of trying to decide, is whether or not the free education plus the reduction of student debt should be together, if they should be separate, but it should be a package deal, right? Siobhan said, let me get that 97K. Apocalypse Meow said 97K, and that's inheritable. J Universe said, damn, them dollar homes and free education is a hard choice to choose between, and I agree. Let me see. Let's see. Ty P got beat says they would just raise the taxes and we would need knowledge to maintain those homes. And I think that's an important
still got to pay property tax. Yep.
That's the reason why I'm not rushing to buy no house. I just call the people to come fix it, come do it, and then I'll just get the rented space that I prefer. Let's see. Donnell says, I'm trying to get us to do away with the either or mentality and embrace the world of both and. I want annual money, free college, cancel student debt, $1 home, healthcare, all of it. Listen, and bargaining from that, right? Creating more leverage and the ability to make more demands based on that. And I ain't mad at you, Donnell, at all. J Universe say, I'm going with the monthly payments. I think let me look at my list. Yeah.
What was the monthly payments? It was like $10,000 a month.
No, there was no monthly. There were yearly payments. 97,000 a year. So not the monthly payments, but agreeing with you about the 97.
But they would probably bust it down over a month. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not doing all that math right now. It's 9:30 at night.
Let me see. I can divide 97 by 12 for you real quick. Let me see what the vibe is with that.
So Girl Nettle said, we have evolved to a place where we need universal income. Our whole lives are run by computers. We're not hunter-gatherers anymore or medieval people dying from the plague.
8 racks. $8,000 a month is what that math come down to.
That's a good-ass job.
I can't be mad at that. I might take the 5 M's just because I think I can flip it faster, but that's just me. Being like, I want to make some multi-million.
You and every nigga.
I'm making multi-million-dollar deals for my iPhone, right? I want that to be me. Either way.
So the last thing I want to say on it though, before you close it out, is the thing that I think we need to be the most concerned about, and this is what the NAACP was expressing when they was talking about their frustration with the plan, is just that people end up using and taking the things like these talking points that are important to us, like reparations, and using it for like political capital and political fodder, but actually not doing anything with it or doing anything about it. So like not having a plan, but promising people $5 million. If anybody else did that, that would be considered a scam. If a nigga was like, man, I'm about to pay all y'all $5 million, like, cool, how you gonna do it? Watch this, I'm gonna figure it out. All right, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like that, that would be the response. And so I think the danger, especially when we're dealing with things politically, is like what I was talking about earlier. They end up attaching themselves to what we care about and what matters. And even people pushing reparations end up becoming controlled opposition. You feel me? It's like they're getting us on board politically without a clear view of how we're gonna be able to get what it is that we asking for. So after we do what they want for us, or we do what they want us to do, like put them in positions of power, what we want in the long run end up being, well, you can settle for this. This is what you'll settle with. They got 100% of what they wanted, but because they just ran with our talking points, we end up having to settle for a fraction of what ended up being promised to us. So we always got to be careful, and that's what the NAACP is pointing out. Is like, listen, you can tell us what you want to do all day. You can sell us a dream all day. If you don't got a business plan, if you ain't got paperwork to tell us what this is gonna look like, yo, come back next time.
Yeah, and I think there's a phrase we use to describe this, the criticism of these types of politics, and that's cruel optimism, right? Where you tantalize and kind of intrigue and captivate the attention of an audience without the real ability to satisfy that. So you make them cruelly optimistic about what's possible, not realizing or exploring the ways that the system is just probably not going to allow for that to happen, right? We don't want to be pessimistic. We don't want to go to a place where we feel like there is no hope, right? We want to go to the systems and the power that be with our hand out and say, put some shit right there. But a lot of people get their hands in their pockets because they're not really willing to believe that the state is ever going to put itself in a position to deal with the black people that exist under its tutelage and under its guidance in the right ways. And so, I think the Reverend is keeping it real with his criticism of reparations. And I think as we continue to black agenda set and figure out, I'm happy people are pushing these conversations. Just don't play with us. You know what I mean? Give us real answers, give us real leadership, give us real direction, and legitimate conversation, and engage with us in a real way in terms of black people, in terms of black queer folks, in terms of black women, in terms of black disabled people, in terms of black immigrants, right? We don't talk a whole lot about black folk and the lives that they live once they come over inside of this country, and the way that the immigration conversation solely focuses on the experiences of one particular part of that demographic, and then takes a very clear diaspora of Latin people and narrows them down to Mexicans, right? Let's also get into that. So it's a lot of complexities, a lot of issues, and we just want you to show and prove. I think if anything, that's where it goes. Shout out to Kevin in the comments. Pulled up on us, man. It's been a long time, but we always love to see you around. Girl Nato says, just kidding. Give me the 5 million. I want my whole life to change overnight. Me too. That's what I'm saying. Like, just instantaneous. And I'll put the money in the right place. 2.5 million going. We sticking that anyway. And then we're going to see.
I just want to be able to not give a fuck about nothing for a week.
A week?
Like, just for a week. Just not give a fuck about nothing. With $5 million? Like $5 million is like, people forget the value of just like alleviating stress in your life, and money can create more stress. So if I could just take a little nice little piece of that, just take a week off, like not have to worry about shit for a week. What you mean? That's not like I'm doing.
That's why I'm like a week.
I have a child. I got a child, so
don't know nothing about that. Me and this little dog, I feed that thing twice a day. We good to go, baby. We go play. We squeaky.
So when I say a week, I'm saying to myself. And so and that's a lot to ask. A week to myself. Yeah, with a wife and a kid, that's a lot to ask. Yeah, but if we got $5 million, they cool. They can let me go for a week. That'd be all right.
Period. Well, again, shout out to Kari, the introvert, part of the Chop Up fam, big part of Chop Nation, that's in the mix with us, for even dropping that suggestions. Do what he did. Make sure you letting us know if you got things we want to talk about. We can't guarantee we'll talk about it, but if we can integrate some things into the conversation and get there, we definitely gonna do it. He dropped it in the YouTube comments. You could do the same of a video. You can also jump on the Instagram at the Chop Up Show. At the Chop Up Show, leave a DM. Let us know if stuff is going on. We want to know about it. If we can, we're gonna tap into it and slide into it and have a good conversation about it. It's big love to y'all. We've talked Trump. We've talked black agenda making. We've talked specifically about reparations. Plug, any final words we got to say to the people before we're done with them for tonight?
Another element that y'all definitely, if you don't know, just to put y'all on game, like we have the spirit of debaters.
Kevin, you go.
And so when y'all hear people talking reckless, when y'all hear people saying dumb shit, it's like Ghostbusters. Who you gonna call? Call the Chop Up. If niggas just on some like, hey, Plug, look at this dumb ass shit.
Call the Chop Up.
You know what I'm saying? Call the Chop Up. If y'all see blatant examples of racial illiteracy on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, call the Chop Up. We will be happy to put them in their place.
Yeah.
Easy. So
explain why they on that nonsense.
Exactly. Subscribe to the Chop Up Show on Instagram. Subscribe to the Chop Up Pod, the Chop Up Show Pod.
Chop Up Show Pod at Chop Up Show Pod at Chop Up Show Pod on Twitter.
At the Political Plug on TikTok. At the Political Plug on Instagram. The Chop Up on Facebook. Don't forget. We want to communicate with y'all more outside of just doing these shows. You know what I mean? So y'all make sure y'all stay connected. Stay tuned. we got a lot more in store.
Yeah.
We should have an interview next week. My I save it. I'll save it. We should have an interview next week to cap off Women's History Month by having a phenomenal woman in this thing.
That part.
So
Hey,
we
hit a
keep
like,
a
hit a love,
phenomenal
hit a
woman.
share.
We keep a phenomenal woman, but we're gonna add another phenomenal woman to, you know what I'm saying, to top off Women's History Month.
That's it. On your way out, hit a like, hit a love, hit a share. Jump in the comments, let people know y'all love the show. We love y'all. Can't wait to see you next Thursday. Until then, Plug, take us out. We'll see y'all.
Peace.